You're listening to Inside Lebo, a podcast giving you an inside look at Mount Lebanon, Pennsylvania, produced by Mount Lebanon's Public Information Office.
Hello and welcome to Inside Lebo. I'm your host, Assistant Municipal Manager and Municipal Planner Ian McMeans.
And I'm Assistant Public Information Officer and Senior and Online Editor Rachel Windsor.
Our guest today is Sarah McGowan, Public Service Librarian at the Mount Lebanon Public Library.
And we all know what great things you can find inside of our library, so Sarah's here to talk to us about all of the online resources that you may or may not know about. So Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about what is this campaign called Go Beyond Books?
So we are all about the books at the library, of course, but the Go Beyond Books campaign, I guess you could say, is just we want people to be aware that we have more than just books in the form of e-resources, which are research databases, genealogy, but then of course we do have digital books. So two of the most popular would be Hoopla and Libby, are probably the ones that people are most familiar with, but we also have something called Boundless. And then of course Canopy, which streams movies. And I'm going to jump ahead perhaps, sorry, but I do want to talk about the Rad Pass because that's a really good initiative that we're doing. So they've really pushed it. It's called Summer Staycation 2024. So if you have a library card in Allegheny County, all you have to do is go to radpass.org and you just type in your library card number and your 4-digit PIN, and then you'll have access to tickets for the National Aviary, Pittsburgh Botanic Gardens, Pittsburgh Zoo, Soldiers and Sailors, Andy Warhol, and many, many more. So I do have to say that you should check daily and check often because the tickets are limited. So that's the one sort of negative, is you might go on hoping to get to the zoo, but perhaps all the zoo tickets are gone for the day. But that's something else that you can access with your library card.
That is a very cool feature. I know I've used it, and I have friends that have used it as well for their kids and their families and all that. And it's really nice that that's available to folks with a library card to be able to do that. And yes, I second your recommendation to check it daily because there's new deals that pop up every day. So that is pretty cool. So these online resources, you mentioned a few of them. I know that we have a lot more. Does it cost anything for people to access them and use them?
No, so it's completely free with your library card. So one thing that I would like to highlight perhaps is Boundless, because that is something that's available to Mount Lebanon Library card holders only. So several databases that we have are only for Mount Lebanon card holders. However, even if you're not a Mount Lebanon resident, you can still get a Mount Lebanon card and access these resources. So if you happen to live in Dormont and Castle Shannon, that's no problem. You can come to our library, you can trade your card in for a Mount Lebanon card and have access to this. You can only have one card in the county, so I would just recommend making sure that you're not accidentally giving something else up, particularly if you have a Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh card, because they also have unique resources. But the nice thing about Boundless is that if you're used to using Libby, as many people probably know, they have very, very long waits because it's very popular. So, for example, a book like The Women by Kristen Hanna, you're probably going to be waiting about 6 months for that. But if you use Boundless, it'll probably only be a couple weeks because it's just less people using. Since Libby is a county-wide resource, you're competing with everybody in Allegheny County. I don't have that number, but it's large. Whereas, when you're just competing with other Mount Lebanon residents, you won't wait nearly as long.
Cool. And so what about the online databases or newspapers that people with a Mount Lebanon library card might have access to?
Sure. So a couple things. So one, which is very academic, you would have to come into the library to use it, is JSTOR.org. So that's probably going to appeal mostly to college students doing research, but it has all the primary sources, so really high quality things. And then Ancestry as well. So you also would have to come into the library to use Ancestry, but you can get remote access to something called Heritage Quest with your Mount Lebanon library card from home. And it's similar to Ancestry. It doesn't have quite as much stuff on it as Ancestry, but Ancestry actually owns Heritage Quest, so I don't know exactly what that business model is, but they're technically two separate resources.
As someone who's done some amateur genealogy research, Heritage Quest gives you kind of like the little tidbits of information, but then when you click like find out more, it bumps you to Ancestry, and you have to like either have a paid account or be at the library. So it is a useful starting point for genealogy research, but I think going to the library, using the computers there, and using the full Ancestry access there is what I've tend to do, because it's just a lot easier. When you try and click through something, you're like, oh, I can't do that now, and I got to remember it and come back later if you're doing it from home. But Heritage Quest is a good starting point to kind of point you in the right direction of what names to look up or what years and things people lived and things like that, to then kind of know what you're doing when you go into the library, because you don't want to take up the computers all day just randomly searching Ancestry too. So as someone who has spent a lot of time doing his family history research, this is a great resource that we have available.
Oh, good. Yeah, thank you for the feedback, because I haven't done any personal. I've done a little bit of ancestry research, and I found my cousin is going to Poland, where some of our great-great-grandparents are from, and I did find some things, but one of the things that you'll find is that they're not very specific. It's just Poland. So it's nice to see the original documents of when people came over here, but they weren't very specific back in the day, unfortunately. And also, we do have a genealogy group that meets at the library monthly. They do provide programming, so if you're interested in that, that's another thing. Data Axle Reference Solutions is interesting. I like that because it gives you access to the white pages. So I don't know if you've ever tried to look up a phone number on the actual whitepages.com, which is horrible. A lot of stuff is paywalled and weird ads. So this is the actual real white pages that you can find information. It also gives you information about businesses. You can get new homeowner information. That's really for people doing more market research, but if you're involved in anything like that, that's a good resource. And then I do want to mention Peterson's Test and Career Prep. So this has all those like SAT, GRE, the NCLEX, all of those are on there. Then another one is a county resource, but it's about that time where school's going back, and it's tutor.com. So you can actually get live homework help from 12 noon to 12 a.m., so 12 to 12. You can just log in, and you'll actually be connected with a tutor live. It doesn't take that long, and then you sort of share like a whiteboard screen, and you can chat or do voice. They might have added video recently, but you can at least do that. And you can also get feedback on papers. So if you wrote a paper and you want to know what a professional thinks of it, you can submit it. And then it also has job resources. So if you're working on a resume, you can submit your resume, and someone will give you feedback on how that's going. And Gale courses, and that's another thing that we offer, which is it's not accredited or anything, but if you want to know about, you want to brush up your skills on public speaking or Microsoft Word or many different things, languages, it has tons of classes. And then it's not live, but it is instructor led. So what will happen is you'll have like I don't know if anyone's listening to this has used Blackboard in college, but something similar, Meshage board, so you can interact with other students in the class and the teacher, but there's no video component or anything like that. So it's self-paced, but you do have to sign up ahead of time, so you can't just do it on the fly. You have to wait till the course is open, but then once the courses are open, you have the full 8 weeks to complete it.
Cool. So you talked a lot about academic resources. Is there anything for the makers and crafters?
Oh yeah, Creative Bug, that's something fun that we have. So for that is all video led. So if you want to know about sewing, knitting, painting, there are tons and tons of videos, and they have specific crafts, you could say, I guess, making a purse or making, I don't know, I'm not a crafter, sorry, I'm blanking on watercolor. So that is all on there as well. So that is fun.
And is there anything in the way of video or things that you can listen to for people to access with the library card online?
Yeah, Canopy is especially great for that. So that one is, you do need the Mount Lebanon card specifically. So that has a lot of really high quality art house films. So if you're a fan of something like A24, for instance, that'll have a lot of those movies on it. So films that are critically acclaimed, also a lot of documentaries and like BBC series, if people are fans of those, you can watch a lot of those for free. And then the Great Courses, which is a learning platform. It's sort of like they get someone, who really is a professor at Stanford or Yale, and they do their subject for you. It's like taking a class there, but for free. So those are also on Canopy. And then Hoopla also has videos. So they have some A24 films as well, but they also have a lot of older movies and movies for children. Canopy does have movies for children as well, and the nice thing about Canopy for kids is that it doesn't cost is not the word I want to use, but let me start over with that one. So for Canopy, you get tickets. You get a certain amount of tickets per month. So you get 20 tickets, which is approximately the equivalent of like every time you use a movie, you're using 2 tickets. So just keep that in mind. But with Canopy Kids, that's completely, you don't use any tickets. So you can watch as much Canopy Kids content. So if you run out of A24 films and you're bored, you can just sit down and watch the entire Canopy Kids catalog. So that's really nice. And then back to Hoopla, also has kids content, and they also have great courses on Hoopla as well. And then another thing I would point out about Hoopla is they have something called a binge pass. So you can essentially check out the Hallmark movie channel for a whole week and watch as many Hallmark movies as you like. Same thing with great courses. So that's a way to sort of maximize the amount of credits that you can use.
Cool. So this is all great information, and you can find out links to all these things on the Mount Lebanon Library website. We're going to take a short break here, and we'll be back with more from Sarah McGowan from the Mount Lebanon Public Library. Welcome back to Inside Lebo. We're here today with Public Services Librarian Sarah McGowan from the Mount Lebanon Public Library. In the first half of the show, Sarah talked a lot about the e-resources that are available that you can find through the Mount Lebanon Library website, as well as the Rad Pass summer staycation initiative that for folks that have a Mount Lebanon Library card, you can go into the Rad website and get daily deals on free tickets to a number of cultural assets around the region that are funded through the Regional Asset District. So, Sarah, do you want to just do a quick recap on how people can go on and sign up for the Rad Pass thing, what all they have to do?
Sure, yeah, that's very simple. You just go to radpass.org and you'll enter your library card number and a 4-digit PIN number. And then once you're in, you'll see all the available passes for the day, and then you'll just click that you want the pass. It'll walk you through. You can usually show it on your phone. Some organizations are specific that they want you to print it. It just depends. But most of the time you can just show it on your phone. And as I mentioned earlier, you want to check often and early to have the best chance of getting a pass. And I also want to mention something similar but different. So we do have something called experience kits. So for those, you have to come into the library building, our library specifically, and they're first come, first served, so you can't reserve them. But this includes the Heinz History Center, Fort Pitt Museum, Meadowcroft Rock Shelter and Historic Village, Historic Fort Steuben, Braddock's Battlefield History Center, Fort Ligonier, the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum, and the Depreciation Landmines Museum. So what that gets you is it's 2 adults and up to 6 children. So the most popular ones are, of course, the Heinz History Center, because that's in Pittsburgh, and then the second most popular is the Trolley Museum, because that's just in Washington. So some of the other ones are going to be a weekend trip, so if you're going to Fort Ligonier or something like that. But again, they're first come, first serve, and you can check it out for 1 week. So I would also highly recommend seeing if those are available.
That's really cool. I can put in a plug personally for Meadowcroft. It's a really cool place. It's outside of Avella, which is like about an hour away, almost to Ohio. But it's one of the early, I think it's the earliest known archaeological site in North America. It's a great trip for adults and kids, and it's just a great outdoors open thing to go do. So I highly recommend checking that one out as a nice day trip.
Oh, great. Thank you.
And switching gears a little bit, something that a lot of the listeners might not know is available to them is these sorts of social services online. Can you walk us through a little bit how you would access that through the library online?
Yeah, so we don't really have specific ones that are online, but we can connect you to social services. So we do have a link on our website it's just mountlebanonlibrary.org, and there's a little spotlight, and it'll take you to the websites of organizations that you would connect with. And there are some libraries in the area, like I believe Dormont is one that has a social worker on staff, so we have a link to that too. And I don't mean on staff, I mean it's an intern who's there certain days rather. So if you were needing some assistance, you could see when the intern was available at the Dormont Library and have a conversation with that person. And then we do partner with 2 organizations, the Career Development, CDC, through the JFCS. So that woman comes in, her name's Pam, she's very nice, she comes in every Thursday. You have to book an appointment with her ahead of time, but you would meet with her at the library, and she is more for career counseling, things like that. So if you're looking for a job, she would be able to help with that. And then also we have a new partnership with the Pennsylvania Women Work, who is mainly focused on new Americans, but men can come to. It's called Pennsylvania Women Work, but it's open to anyone. And then they will also, again, help connect you with job resources.
Cool. So you mentioned all these great resources that are available for folks with a Mount Lebanon Library card, and we know from the data we collect that a large number of our population does have library cards. But for anyone listening who doesn't have a Mount Lebanon Library card, how do they go about signing up for one?
It's simple. Well, the most straightforward way would just be to come into the library with your photo ID. That's really all you need, unless your address is different than what's on your ID. In that case, you would bring a piece of mail. But if your address is current, just bring your ID. They'll sign you up at the circulation desk. It takes less than 5 minutes, and we'll also give you tons of brochures, so you'll have all the information that you need about all of these resources I'm discussing. You can also sign up online through the catalog. So if you went to our website, there's a little button at the top that says catalog. So the only thing about doing that is that you're still going to have to come into the library eventually. So you can't avoid that, unfortunately. You're going to have to come in because if you try to use something like Canopy with the temporary library card, it won't work because you need it's a little bit boring inside baseball, I guess, but it's the prefix that counts, and the Mount Lebanon cards are 21932. So if yours doesn't have it, which it won't, Canopy's just not going to work for you. But what you can do is you can place holds on books, and you should probably still be able to access Libby and other certain databases, but not the Mount Lebanon specifically.
Cool. And just as a quick follow-up, is there a minimum age you need to be to get a library card?
No, actually, you can even get a library card for an infant if you like, if you're a parent. So yeah, of course, we would have to have the parent or guardian there. But yeah, you can sign up as many children as you like, and no age limits. No age limits to any of this stuff, actually, except for the Rad Pass. Technically, you're supposed to be 18 to check that out. But yeah, so no limits.
Cool.
And one last logistical question. Say I don't live in Mount Lebanon. Can I still use the library's resources?
Yeah, absolutely. You can certainly just come in and we will trade out your library card if you have one of the neighboring, as long as you're in Allegheny County. So if you're outside the county, you can still get a Mount Lebanon library card through Access PA. So just say you lived in Washington County, you would bring in your Washington County card, show it to us, and then that does entitle you to also have one of our library cards. If you don't have one, then I think there might be a fee, but I don't work circulation, so I'm not 100% sure all the rules and regulations. But yeah, so as long as you're in Allegheny County, there's no problem getting a Mount Lebanon card.
Great. Well, thank you, Sarah, for joining us today. And folks can check out all these great online resources at mountlebannonlibrary.org. And don't forget to check on the daily Rad Pass for the summer staycations at radpass.org as well. And thanks, Sarah. Any other final thoughts before we get going today?
No, just we really hope to see a lot of you at the library. If you're not library users, we hope you become library users. And we're always happy to answer any questions. So if you have specific questions about resources that I've mentioned that you want more information about, just call the library and ask for the reference librarian, and we'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And that is it for this edition of Inside Lebo, produced by Carrie Monyo, with music by Drew Monyo and graphics by Chris Lieber.
We'll be back soon with another episode of Inside Lebo. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Inside Lebo, produced by Mount Lebanon's Public Information Office. Learn more about all things Lebo at mountlebanon.org or by following our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages.